G'day viewers, it's Michael here again and welcome back to SingleRacer. And now for those of you that have ever had to tow or transport a vehicle, you know how expensive it can be. So I figured with the cost of taking my V8 Supercar over to Road America, I thought, well, while I'm here, why not attempt an RSR World Record Hotlap? And so those of you that saw my last video will know I've already got the world record on this track with this particular car, but that was kind of with the distractions of the race around me, even though for the last lap I was sort of clear to do that world record lap. But I thought I'd do another attempt without the distraction of the other cars. But just before we start, let's head on over and I'll give you a couple of tips that help me if you also have problems with this track. And so let's head on over there now. Okay folks, so now what I want to do is I want to talk about a simple setup and a couple of tips if you're a beginner or just having trouble unlocking this track. The tips help me and they might help you as well. But just for those that don't like VR, I'll have almost exactly the same view but in 2D, as well as the external replay view, and I'll have the timestamps in the description, so just click on whichever view you personally like the best. But let's go to the setup screen, and I'm not good at setup, so what I want to do is just load what I currently have and tell you why. So the first thing there is I have the gears, which by default are somewhere down here, set up to the maximum 308. Now what's interesting about that is down the straight you don't need that speed. You only reach to 70 or something like this in this car. But what I found was by doing that, by selecting 268 or around there, you become, the gears, the lower gears become at odds with the corners. They don't, there's not an intuitive flow. But I found that by setting it up to 308, the maximum top speed in 6th gear, you don't need it, but the lower gears into particular corners seem more intuitive. They just have a more natural flow. But that's just for me. Try your own tests. Now, for the tyres, I do a ritual where I've discovered that by lowering the pressure by 2, on whatever is the default pressure, seems to help. And the principle is based around roughly the idea that when you race for a while, the tyre pressures go back up to the default settings, but can stop you sometimes if you or I've noticed if you have them too high, they become like a balloon shape at the top of the balloon, meaning that you only have the very center of the tyre actually touching the track rather than the whole width of the tyre once it gets too hot and you have the pressures too high. One change that I did do though was changed from, because this is a basic one single hot lap attempt, I changed from the soft to the super soft just for that extra grip, and based on that one all-out attempt at the hot lap, I also lowered the fuel to 7 litres. It's just enough for one lap, and you know, you want the car as light as possible. Or experiment with, I have had other cars where I've had the litres higher, and almost because the car's too light, just to stabilise the car. So just see how you go and experiment. But I personally haven't changed anything else because I don't know how to be honest. So that's my setup. Now the two tips that I have is the first is, or the first tip I should say, is the first 3 corners, because although they are each tighter or more open than each other, they all have the same thing, which is a concrete or paved runoff on the left hand side. And so my tip is that if I show you on the wheel here, is as I turn deliberately tighter into the corner, But then what I do is I open up the car to be straight, but using the runoff, I actually open the car up more. So because now I have a 240 wheel rotation, which is important because I like the wheel to behave like an F1 car, meaning really tight all the time. So the maximum, even in a hairpin, that I tend to turn the wheel is this, 12 to 6. And that's my preference. But what happens is you probably won't see in the replay any difference between, you know, the normal person opening the wheel like this and me opening it up just a fraction more. But what I find is that as the car becomes straight and I have the runoff, I use that extra opening up for the runoff to gain what I think, or what I feel, is 1 or 2 extra kilometers. Now, as an example in VR view, is if I turn the wheel and the car's tilting like this, as I open up the wheel to where it's straight, but then open it up a fraction more on that runoff, the car balances back up like this and is much more stable, and I feel that I can carry more speed out of the corner. So to explain that in an overhead view, just to make it a bit clearer, let's check that out now. And so to show you quickly in a visual sense, let's see my approach to the corner. Now, to be honest, I missed the apex, but if you see the red line next to one of the white lines on the coming out of the corner, this is where an alien with more skill than me could probably go straight. But if you have a look at me, I unwind the wheel, and when I get to this red line now, if I'm doing 100 kilometers, then by stretching out the wheel, it might allow me to go 101, 102 kilometers as I come out of that corner. Okay, and the second tip is for the carousel, that long right-hander that's shaped like the letter C. And my tip for that, and again, at full flight you probably won't see it that dramatically, but I treat it as a double apex. And so rather than the letter U or the letter C, I treat it as writing the letter V but backwards, so from the right hand side to the left hand side. And the reason that I do that is not so much that I'm treating it as a double apex, although I am, but the second part of the corner, as you come out of that long right hand corner, is because I'm almost treating it, when I hit the apex, which is the very last part of the corner, as almost a direct straight line along the straight as well. So rather than hitting the apex and then trying to straighten up for the straight, I'm almost making it a straight line, or as straight a line as I can, from the bottom of the V. And so now let's check that out in the overhead view. And now, admittedly, this might be very hard to see because we're so high up, but if you imagine the letter U, or to me more accurately the letter C, rather than following the whole way around the corner, if you have a look at the very bottom, I ease out down and try and make it more like a letter V and have that double apex. Okay folks, so now let's see in this one flying RSR Hotlap if I can beat my 208. Now in the race I got a 208, even because I essentially had in the last lap 4 cars in front of me that were clear and the rest of the cars behind me were clear, so I had an open track, but it was still in race conditions. But I'm trying for now for a 208, a low 208, or possibly even a 207. So let's now go for that flying lap. Okay folks, now I'm just declaring that I'm doing this vocal over a replay because I can focus better on doing the best hotlap I can. And because of that, I run out wide here to build as much speed as I can. And here's where one of the examples where I open up the car onto that pavement to get as much speed over the start finish line as I possibly can. And I do the same thing on the next two corners as you saw in that overhead view. So right up to 6th gear, back down to 3rd, tied into the corner, although I missed that apex, so I could shave definitely some time on that corner at least. And here is the same thing, down to 2nd, it's a bit tighter, and then open the car up onto that pavement, and then I look for the word Sarge on that sign, see it there? And that makes it as straight a line as you possibly can make it, and that's one of the little tips that I always do. This is a very heavy car, so straight down the gears right from the top of that hill, try and turn in nice and tight. Now here I brake actually before the sign and turn in, and that way I get a nice tight turn as well, trying to stop the wheel spin. The car just wants to spin all the time, those back wheels. Very, very powerful car. Again, I brake a bit earlier with the idea of turning in to get as much speed into the back wheels out of the corner. And here's where I do that letter V. So it's just subtle, but here I run out wide and then slowly tighten it in and make it see as straight a line as I possibly can onto this straight. And that's the idea of trying to shape it like a V. Ease off the throttle. I use a lot of throttle steering in this thing where I don't brake but just throttle steer, and there's another corner coming up. Brake early to get the smoothness again. Down to 2nd, hold it tight. And here's another example where I just ease off the throttle a little bit to get the nose to turn in there. Just get the nose turned in. Again, aim for that runoff a bit here, and then use the runoff again over here to try and get that 1 or 2 extra kilometres. Now, can I get a 2:07? That's what I'm gunning for, a 2:07. Can I beat my time at least? No. Well, I beat my time. I beat my world record, a 2:08, but I just couldn't get that 2:07. So let's head on over into the pits and show you the official time and my goodbyes. Okay folks, so as we say goodbye to one of the marshals and a final goodbye to Road America in this fantastic Holden V8 Supercar, let's check out the official time. Now I was hoping for a 2:07, but I just couldn't get it, so we'll have to settle for a 2:08.076, but herein lies the channel challenge. I'll have a link to this set of cars in the description, and can you beat me? Can you reach that 2:07 or lower, based on the fact that I really only, because of work, I had only a couple of hours to try and get that time. If I had the normal afternoon with my brother, and maybe my brother could even attempt the challenge to see if he can beat me, but I just can't get it in the time allocated, that 2:07. But I usually need my brother to watch, because he drives a totally opposite style to me, and we kind of blend our styles together, and I think we would have got a 2:07 or possibly even a 2:06 if we had one of our weekend racing sessions like we normally do. But 2:08.076 will just have to do. So this is Michael signing out for SingleRacer. I'll catch you next time. See you later.